Hey guys, this is Low Tech Gaming here. So before we begin, I wanted to send a shout out to the developers for actually allowing me to go ahead and participate in their kind of community event or so for, I guess, Foxhole content creators, because it gave me the excellent opportunity to go ahead and try out some of the new vehicles coming out to update 37. Now, I had a awesome time testing out most, if not all, the vehicles in coming out for update 37, and I just want to go over some of the highlights that I've found so far within the current build I had the opportunity to test out. Note that most of the things I'm going to talk about, it's still a work in progress. None of the things I'm going over are like finalized at this point or so. It's mostly just what I've experienced from the I guess the private dev server I had the opportunity of participating in. So first off, I just want to talk about how excited I am about all the new vehicles coming this update. So I mean, we have RPG Jeeps, we have MG Jeeps, we have track trucks, we have MG APCs, we have tankettes, we have AT half tracks, we have armored, well, like I guess like reinforced armored light tanks and battle tanks, and we have a lot of different vehicles coming out with update 37, and it is just, it's incredible. So it's actually I'm really looking forward to the next update, kind of just seeing how these vehicles are going to work out or so in the game or so. So what I'm going to be going over within the next couple of minutes is kind of just my take on what I've been able to test out, as well as how I see certain vehicles working out in within Foxhole itself, I guess. Starting off, I wanted to touch on the new physics mechanics in terms of just driving vehicles around. What I found was that driving vehicles around is completely different than how it was in the previous update. So all the vehicles have a lot of weight behind how they move or so. Moving Jeeps around was quite thrilling, but also I could not avoid spitting it out. So you kind of have to like tap the A and D keys, so you can't like just hold on to them and kind of just drive around and make that complete turn. You kind of have to tap it out, especially if you're going at full speeds, because you can do some major drifting with the Jeeps or so, which makes the MG and the RPG Jeeps or so for the Warden and Colonial sides respectively. It makes them seem quite interesting because of the fact that you will be able to go ahead and, while they are still ridiculously slow off-roads, they will have a huge amount of mobility on the roads to sort of make banks, turns, and whatnot. So I'm actually kind of interested to see how some of those play out in terms of pilots and work. But from what I can tell, Jeeps are extremely maneuverable. Trucks seem, at least from what I can tell, they have a good amount of weight behind them, so they take a while to accelerate up to top speed. But once they get up there, so they're just hauling across the roads or so, to the point where you will definitely need to use your handbrake in order to make those tight turns, in order to get in there and actually be able to turn without hitting every single wall, every single building or so in like a city or so. So mastering some of the new driving mechanics are going to be a must if you want to become very efficient with driving these new vehicles. Tanks especially. I found that tanks, they seem to have a lot of weight behind them. They didn't feel like they were, it almost feels like they were on ice in the previous build or so. Now they feel very weighted. It's hard to kind of get them to go exactly where you want or so, and turning them is really, really slow. So especially for like the battle tank itself, it really kind of illustrates how massive these vehicles are, I guess, so, which is kind of interesting. So I'm interested to see how larger tank formations are going to work now with, I guess, light tanks and battle tanks having like less maneuverability in terms of just like kind of just or less having more weight behind them, I guess. So you won't be controlling these tanks as easily as you did beforehand. So moving on, so I'm going to talk about like some of the variations. So I think some of the obvious ones were with the track vehicles, because essentially for the Wardens, I believe the Wardens have a tracked AC and a tracked truck, and these vehicles, from what I can tell, while they are, I think they're slightly slower than the wheeled counterparts. So from what I could tell, as on road, so they are slightly slower. They not too noticeably. So I think you'd only lag behind just a tad bit or so on road or so. But off road, these vehicles will turn circles around the wheeled equivalent. So they are actually, I actually think that the tracked AC is technically better than the wheeled one. So in the sense that because the tracked one has technically the same health points as the wheeled one, and at the cost of just on-road speed, even just slight on-road speed, you get a great amount of off-road traction, allowing for you to catch up to those targets out, yeah, just off-road. So what I found with most vehicles is that tracks have a huge speed advantage over basically any vehicle when it comes to off-road engagements. So I definitely see those vehicles, those tracked trucks and tracked ACs should have a very significant role in the next update, without a doubt. Armored vehicles. This is something that I think I need to do more testing on, because I'm going to go over this later when I talk about armor penetration. But I think the difference that I can find right now, so it's excluding penetration, because I'm still off and on that. We did a very easy test on the armored light tank versus the non-armored light tank, and we found that the one that was unarmored, so well, not unarmored, but the one that didn't have the armor upgrade, happened to have a greater speed, so it could go ahead and accelerate faster, and it can actually catch up to a armored tank, essentially. And unfortunately, we still, like, I'm gonna go over it later, but it is very noticeable. So, and I think it actually, throughout most of my tests, we found that this is kind of universal throughout all the normal vehicles versus the armored counterparts. So they tend to be faster, but they don't have the, I can't say durability, because I'm not actually entirely sure, but I'll go over that later. So moving on to what is just the various different states that vehicles can be in. So we have it where armored vehicles can be tracked, they can have oil leaks, and they can have the turrets absolutely disabled. So a tracked vehicle, essentially, it moves extremely slow. It basically moves at a crawl, and I think in any normal engagement, it's going to be dead to rights. Oil leaks, they're actually almost as worse, because they just leave your tank dead out there, so without the means of moving, because all your fuel inside the tank just leaks out. And I think you have to repair the tank to full in order to repair both of these as well. And then the last one I wanted to go into is like having your turret disabled. Like when I was going into it, I thought it meant that your turret would be well, disabled. I know, funny, right? And I thought you could still use the gun, but it would just be fixed at a certain angle or so, and you wouldn't be able to fire at any other angle. But no, instead, how it works is that you cannot fire your gun. So when your turn is disabled, so you are basically unarmed. So it is any of these almost a death sentence on any vehicle, so in a battlefield situation or so. And all these can only be repaired if you repair your vehicle up to 100% health, unfortunately. So if you have your tracked battle tank out there on the front lines, it is going to get murdered. If it suffers an oil leak by getting hit in the rear, it is going to run out of fuel, and it is going to be murdered, unfortunately. So, and if its turret is disabled, maybe you have a chance to get out of there, but I'm assuming that if they can see that, unless there's something out there to stop them from coming after you immediately, you're basically, your only chance is to disengage, which I find to be actually quite interesting, because it does make it so these conditions are extremely crippling to enemy tanks. So granted, they're not entirely easy to carry out, like through enormous different like tasks and whatnot. So we found it extremely hard to go ahead and track vehicles to actually hit their turret ring and cause them to be disabled. I think the easiest one was to do the oil leak, because I think a focused shot square in where the engine compartment would be in the back of the vehicle was the easiest way to go ahead and just cause it to have an oil leak. So I think that would be the easiest one, but granted, that's on, you're trying to hit a tank from its backside. In a frontline situation, that's not going to happen, so it's something you can do against maybe retreating vehicles. But that would be about it. So, but no, these are definitely going to be the death of some tank crews out there, without a doubt. Moving on, I think those two things I wanted to talk about in like just a general summary. So the first one is going to be AT guns. I think the AT guns are like one of the things that I actually kind of wanted for the longest time. So the ability to have like some type of non-tank anti-tank weapon out there that wasn't like an RPG, so something that was like towed and something that had better range and better accuracy to it. So currently there's going to be 3 coming out to the update. They're going to have AT emplacements, towed AT guns, and AT half-tracks, so if you're with the Wardens, essentially. The emplacement guns, in my opinion, actually, no, I don't know which way to go with this, because it's like, so the emplacements themselves have the fastest reload rate, so you can just fire non-stop, boom, 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 essentially. So, and I find that they are going to be extremely useful, especially if you know which direction the enemy is attacking from. The towed AT guns, they are, I don't know how to describe them, because it's like they have a slower reload speed than the emplacements, of course, but they're just a little bit more mobile. So I see the emplacements being very vulnerable to mortars. Like, I know the emplacement, it actually has a good amount of durability. I think someone lobbed several HEs on the emplacement AT gun, and it seemed to be fine. But I'm not entirely sure if it's going to hold up to heavy artillery fire, especially since it's very vulnerable. The towed AT gun is going to work probably similar to the FMG. I don't see it being useful against battle tanks or so, and then the AT hat track for the Wardens or so, it's basically the most mobile of them, but it has the slowest reload speed. None of these are going to be good against battle tanks, so they're going to be, depending on the situation, they can kind of supplement a force, for example. So it's like the AT gun, the towed AT guns, and the anti-tank hat tracks will be able to go ahead and supplement a force or so against like light tanks or so. Definitely against other hat tracks, definitely against ACs and anything below. They're going to rip them to shreds. But a battle tank is going to be harder to deal with these AT guns, because I think I think we did some testing on it, and we found that like the Toad one at least could be taken out with 2 shots. I haven't done any testing with AP shells yet, unfortunately, so I think I'm going to go over that more in penetration. But from what I can tell, so AT hat-tracks, Toad AT guns, and also the Toad AT guns, from what I can tell, only had a range of 35 meters. And I'm assuming that the AT hat-tracks and emplacement AT guns have the same range, which means that they're at a 5-meter disadvantage from light tanks and battle tanks, so meaning that you have to get closer up or have them come closer to you in order to engage, which might result in a lot of them being killed. So I do see them definitely in a defensive role or supplementing larger armored units, so with some more AT power. But I don't know. I'm actually kind of curious to see what players will think of creatively in terms of how to further utilize them, because I do think that they are a very useful weapon. I think they all use 68mm rounds, so they have a completely new ammo type, which I don't know how I feel about it. I think if it's 68mm, they might as well just use a 75mm cannon, I guess, in my opinion. I think that would give them like more flexibility, but I don't know. That's just my general opinion, I guess. Okay, so moving on to like the biggest thing, the one thing that I think puts everything into question, is something that I don't fully understand as of yet, as of this date. Penetration. So essentially, when you fire anything from like an AT rifle, an RPG, or any type of shell from a cannon, it has a chance, or actually, this is the biggest question, because it's like, I'm not entirely sure if it's RNG, or if it's depending on where you shoot at this point, but I'm going to go with chance, just not confuse you guys, but there's a chance that any of those shells that I just talked about can bounce off a light tank or a battle tank, essentially making it so you can negate enemy AT attacks altogether, essentially. And I don't fully understand this system, especially when it comes down to the armored versions of vehicles. Because from what I conducted like 3 tests on this. So I took like a armored light tank against like a unarmored, or not an unarmored, I keep on doing that, a normal light tank with a like, I guess like an enhanced armored version, so the colonial one with the sandbags. And in that test we actually lost. So I was in like the sandbag light tank, so, and despite having, I guess, that extra armor, we still ended up getting disabled before they did, even though we were taking turns firing at one another, and we even shot first. And then I conducted another test with, because it's actually very interesting, because the Wardens actually have, I guess they have a total of 3 battle tanks now. The Colonials have 2. They have the normal one, they have the one with sandbags on it, the, I guess the extra armor version, or so, the jumbo version. But the Wardens have 3. So they have the normal one, they have the up-armored one that has a extra armored plate on the front and sides. But they also have a long barrel one. And the long barrel one is interesting because I haven't, because the only thing I could tell with that, with complete certainty, sorry I can't speak right now, but I could tell that it had a 45mm range. Meaning that it could go ahead and fire at targets outside their normal range or so, and it is in fact probably the longest range, like personal, or like, I guess, vehicular weapon with direct fire in the game so far. Besides artillery, of course, so at least from what I can tell. So I haven't had the opportunity to test out the new assault tanks yet, but from what I can tell, it has that range advantage, but I'm not entirely sure if it does more penetrating power from what I can tell. So it seems that it's really interesting because I can't really tell when it comes to penetration, because in that engagement with the light tank, normal light tank versus the armored, the upper armored one, the upper armored one lost. So, but then I had it well the upper armored one went up against the long barrel battle tank, and in that situation, the long barrel battle tank ended up losing. So I'm not entirely sure, because it's like I don't know what the armor means in terms of the tank, because I naturally assumed that it was either going to be either more health or a better chance of ricocheting, but I'm not actually entirely sure at this point. Nor am I sure that the long barrel gun maybe gives it more penetration or so. I'm not entirely sure how these work right now. They're very interesting or so, to say the least or so, because they do, having that armored penetration makes it so essentially you don't have to go ahead and make tanks more and more, give them more and more health. You can instead just give it where they have more armor, which allows them to go ahead and kind of tank damage. But also, from what I can tell, there are all ways to go ahead and get reliable shots through armor, depending on what caliber you're using. So I found that if you shoot at the lower glaciers of enemy tanks, as well as you shoot like right straight into the turret or so, from like where the gun mantlet is, you have a higher chance of getting a penetration. So that's what me and a couple other guys concluded after doing some various testing. But we're actually not entirely sure. But I think one of the biggest factors going into the next update is going to be getting a gunner who knows where to shoot on certain tanks from head on. Because if you know how to do that, you're going to be at a massive advantage over your enemies. So because you're not, because rounds that are bounced don't do any damage, from what I can tell. So if you can make a consistent shot that do consistent damage, you'll be able to destroy enemy vehicles with ease. But as of, I guess as of right now, so as of this video going live, so I don't have enough information on that. I'm hoping to get more information on that for like maybe a later video, so maybe later on this week. But as it stands right now, I'm sort of lost at it for the most part. But I'm hoping that with some future tests, I can get a better grasp where I can go ahead and kind of just pass on that knowledge on to you guys, because I think I do like the direction they're going with this. I kind of wish that I guess I wish that some of the, like, okay, so this is I kind of went over all the I guess all the different features that I've tested so far, and this is just my personal opinion on some of these variants or so. And while I do like what they were going with I guess having faction-specific vehicles, like the Colonials are the only faction that have a tank yet, from what I can tell, and the Warnings are the only people who have an AT half-track. The Colonial APC is the only one that has a MG and whatnot, and so the Colonials have the only one that has an RPG and whatnot, and then the Warnings have the only battle tank that has a long barrel. It's, I don't know, I can understand the need to go ahead and make it so factions have specific vehicles, but I think they should go, in my personal opinion, so I think they should go along the lines of having it, well, maybe they're the same vehicle, but they have maybe different weapons or different characteristics, but not that some vehicles are completely exclusive to certain factions. So, like, for example, like if you have, like, for like the AT Warden half-track, I guess, or the AT half-track in general, maybe have it well the Colonial one has maybe a 40mm gun instead of a 68, and then have it where it can like fire faster maybe, or having it where essentially like maybe the Colonial RPG Jeep is, yeah, just an open top, just like it is in the game right now, and then maybe the Warden one's like more armored, but it's like slower, I guess. So it has like I don't know, like it's slower, but it has more durability to it. You could have it where maybe both the Warden and Colonials have long barrel tanks, but have it where, I don't know, some nuances to it, because it's something like, because like, I don't see why the Colonials would be the only people to think putting an RPG on a Jeep is a good idea, or so, and vice versa for like the Wardens, I guess, or so. I don't know, because there's like a functionality to it that I think it would be nice to see both factions have them. But I can understand what they're going with it or so, and as always, this is just, they're still developing the game or so, and I actually appreciate the work they put into all these different vehicle types so far, because I think I've been wanting this for a long time. I wanted AT guns, I wanted weapons on Jeeps or so. I wanted to have it where there were different types of battle tanks and whatnot, so it's really interesting going to this this update from what I can tell, and I'm hoping to get more footage to you guys. I know that I have been absent for the longest time, but I'm hoping to go ahead and put out more videos as the summer goes along. So I mean, what is it? We're all in quarantine right now, so I guess you don't have anything better to do either, I guess, right? But no, I'm hoping to go ahead and get more content to you guys, so, and also try to expand my library as the summer goes on. But yeah, no, I hope you guys enjoyed the this video. This is probably longer than I wanted it to be, so, but yeah, stay tuned for more updates on Update 37, and I will catch you guys the next time.